Hi, excuse me, sir. Do you know where the restroom is?
Manners maketh man.
I have manners. That's why I asked where the restroom is. What are you doing? What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Now, I know everybody's caught up in the hype of Spider-Man No Way Home, but there's a little Kingsman movie coming out too. Woohoo! It's the Kingsman, the prequel to one of my absolute favorite movies of that year. Now, the sequel didn't live up to the first, but will the prequel outdo it? We're going to talk about it right now, spoiler-free. Let's do it. So, in the early years of the 20th century, the Kingsman Agency is formed to stand against a group plotting a war to wipe out millions. And we have one man racing against time to stop this group of individuals, and Matthew Vaughn is once again our director. Ralph Fiennes is our main character, Harris Dickinson as his son, Djimon Hounsou, Stanley Tucci, Daniel Bruhl, Rhys Ifans, who played the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man. He plays a standout villainous character who may not be the big bad that our heroes are going up against, but he provides one of the absolute best action scenes in the entire movie. And really, this film had me shaking my head like, I don't know what to think about it. I have no clue where it's going to go, what kind of movie it's going to be, if it's going to capture the same tone as the first Kingsman, which went completely off the rails at times, but always knew when to scale it back. That's why everybody was comparing it to films like James Bond, but James Bond with a bit of a twist, right? Then we get the sequel, and the sequel took that idea of going off the rails, but never really brought it back home, right? I like a lot of moments in the sequel, but as a whole, the movie feels a bit messy. Now, I look at The Kingsman, and I think to myself, this is a very different type of movie because, honestly, it's taking itself more serious for the most part. Now, there's a couple of scenes talking Rhys Ifans and his character. It's just the most wacky, crazy, zany battle you will ever see. And I love the fact that you have Djimon Hounsou and someone like Ralph Fiennes engaging in some of the coolest action you will see all year. I kid you not, this one scene in particular was a standout, and even though tonally it was a bit off from the rest of the film. So that's where we kind of scale back and look at the screenplay and what it's trying to do, what it's trying to implement, and the fact that Matthew Vaughn is almost making a World War I movie more so than he's making a Kingsman film. Because if you go into this movie thinking it's going to be pure what we know as Kingsman, that's not the case, because what we get is kind of the buildup of that idea, but we never really see anything along those lines play out until the main end of the film. No. What this movie is, it's essentially a World War I based movie where our main two characters, a father and a son, are planting the seeds of what is to come, learning how to respond to each other, because Conrad, he has had it up to here with his father not allowing him to do what he needs to do. Now, part of me was like, is he really as old as he says he is? Because he looks older than they're saying he is in the film. But he's too young to go out and join the fight, really make that decision for himself, and his father doesn't approve. Now, we get that backstory at the beginning of the movie, and it's a really nice buildup. And that opening scene, I mean, it throws you right into the fire. So, not necessarily a lot going into that, but once you come out of it, you're sitting back thinking, all right, a nice backstory for these two characters. What's that relationship going to be like? But this father, he's so protective of his son, and everyone around them, they kind of see what that progresses into. I thought Gemma Arterton was really good in this film. She plays a character who starts out as one thing, slowly develops into something else, and that's what I can say for a lot of these characters. But the ones that I was really missing out on, like we just didn't get the proper build-up for, were the ones that ended up playing a key role at the end of the film. So I was left really dry with a lot of the characters, because what the movie opts to do is it focuses more on the grand scale story of this Duke, what's going on with the war, how all of this plays into the characters that we know. So it's really kind of the background noise happening, and then eventually we head into that war, and while these scenes, they didn't take up too much time, they're really well constructed, and a part of it almost reminded me of, not on that level, okay, because 1917, it's a beast of its own. But you see that landscape and you're like, oh, you're throwing me right into this. And this is kind of Vaughn's attempt at making a World War I film. Now, the big problem behind that is the fact that the Kingsman idea gets lost in that. So, to me, the Kingsman felt like two different movies. You have the Kingsman isms that are sometimes over the top, but for the most part, that's when we're getting the crazy action scenes. And I'm talking hand-to-hand combat, all the great camera movements that you know from Matthew Vaughn. They are somewhat few and far in between, but those scenes are really good. Then you have the World War I stuff, and when we go out into battle and we're exploring the relationship between these two individuals, it really worked for me. At other points, they're talking politics, and they're talking things going on behind the scenes of this war, and we're spending a lot of time there. And that's when I thought the movie started to become a bit more on the dull side, and that's really unfortunate because you get some good here, but then you also get some bad here. So my enjoyment of this film was up and down, but the characters, I believe, are compelling enough, at least the ones they choose to focus on, to say, hey, I still got entertainment as a whole at the end of the day. So before I give you guys my score, I want to say thank you so much for watching. If you like this review, you want to see more, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below to support this channel. And stay tuned. We have a spoiler review for No Way Home coming very soon. So the third Kingsman film is quite enjoyable at times. It's uneven, and there's a lot Vaughn is trying to do, often too much, but it works best when the action is at the forefront. It feels much more scaled back than the previous two, but the madness is still there. My score is a solid 64%. It's not a film that, I'm going to sit back and say it lives up to the hype of the first movie, but it is my favorite sequel, even though it's a prequel, of the two. So my question, are you a fan of this franchise? Are you liking what Matthew Vaughn is doing? Are you excited because they just announced they're going back, they're doing a Kingsman 3, telling the end of Taron Egerton's story, so excited for that. You guys are the best. Stay tuned. I'll see you soon.